Hello everyone and welcome back to On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis in the United States. And today I want to talk about the truth about the 2024 election and what may possibly happen to the Harris campaign. Make sure to hit the like button to subscribe if you want more content just like this. So as you all know, Donald Trump was going to defeat Joe Biden in an electoral college landslide. It was just going to happen. I mean, they kicked him out of the race, and I take that as my prediction was correct, because if it was not that bad, they wouldn't have dropped him out of the race. And you had the governors of New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire. No, probably not Minnesota, but you had New Mexico, Virginia, Maine. They were all like, dude, he's literally going to lose the election here. And things were getting really bad for Joe Biden. He had low record support with Hispanics and African Americans, and his white vote was seemingly okay, but he probably would have done worse with non-college educated voters. And now they replaced Joe Biden with Harris. And Harris had a little bit of a bounce in the polling data, but it seems like as time's gone on, we've gotten more accurate polls in. Time has kind of gone on for the response bias, and my aggregate corrects for the response bias. So my aggregate should have never had any response bias. Yes, Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden by 7, but it's not because Donald Trump's support went down from 50 to 45. It's because the Democrat support went all the way from 39%, where Biden was, and it probably would have gone up to 45%, where Harris kind of started out in my average. I made a retrospective average for the election with Trump and Biden. And what's interesting, and it goes from June 21st to July 21st, and we see right here, Donald Trump is literally beating Joe Biden by basically 8 points in the popular vote, 7.5 points. Kennedy was at about 8%, undecideds at about 3.5, which isn't even that many, by the way. And you have Weston Stein at about there. 3.5 undecideds is pretty good. Just FYI, that's pretty good stuff. And this would have shown that Donald Trump would have just absolutely clobbered him. He would have just absolutely demolished him. I wonder what it would look like if you would have plugged in the electorate for the latest Atlas Intel poll. I wonder what that would have looked like, because that may have been really bad. If we would have plugged this in, let's see what that looks like. So Donald Trump would have been at around 43, Biden all the way down at 45. Kennedy would have been at 13%. Undecided is still at 3.8, and Weston Stein would have been a little bit higher. So third-party turnout basically would have been really high. Kennedy would have probably gotten like 13% nationally. I wonder what the aggregate from Atlas Intel's June poll had. I'll probably go ahead and update that and inform you guys what that would have looked like. I mean, Biden was just going to have a really bad night, guys. But now Donald Trump, in my average over time, he's inching closer and closer to 50%. He's actually never gone below 47, by the way. So in the entire time that my average has existed, you know, it was created a month after Harris dropped out, or Harris came in the race, but the average has been around for basically about a month. We've basically had a month aggregate, and he has basically never ever been below 47%. He's never dropped below 47 at all. And that's a bad sign, because Donald Trump got basically 47% of the vote in 2020. So the fact he's never pulled below his 20% isn't good for Harris. And the fact that she hasn't even been above 47 either. I mean, she's never gone above 47. She peaked around September 10th and the 11th, but once we added that Atlas Intel poll and it came into the aggregate and the electorate kind of changed, she did kind of actually tank in the polls. And this is correcting for whatever response bias would have occurred, and Donald Trump is just completely trouncing her in the popular vote. And it's very similar to what Atlas Intel had, which was a 3.6 percentage point lead. I have a lead of about 3.4%. And that's including all these other pollsters that are not accurate pollsters. All these left-leaning pollsters are still in the aggregate. And we still have a lead that's very similar to Atlas Intel. And our numbers are somewhat-ish similar. You still have undecideds in the aggregate too, so that's kind of why it's weighing down their final numbers. And West and Stein have actually been increasing in support, by the way, so they have had a little bit of a surge nationally. Kennedy is literally basically about to be at zero, so Kennedy's support is basically gone. The last like 2%, some of it went undecided, but a couple of the major party support did also go undecided as well after the debate and at some point before the debate. So we'll kind of see how that breaks as time goes on. Hopefully the undecideds don't stay that high. But now, pretty much Donald Trump is on pace to win in the Electoral College by a pretty big amount. And guys, this is not a question of will Donald Trump win. If my prediction in the popular vote holds, he will win. The question is, what's going to happen in Minnesota and New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine, and Nebraska? I mean, no one's really talking about this to the way I'm talking about it. And if we go to the swingometer, guys, that just came out, I mean, if Donald Trump just does, like, let's look at his 2016 performance with white non-college. See, whites no degree, 29 to 66%, right? So basically, let's say this is the map, right? He recreate that. He's already at 319 electoral college votes, which is Robert Barnes' prediction, by the way. He's already at 319 electoral college votes, winning Wisconsin by 7, Michigan by 3, Pennsylvania by 5, North Carolina by 4, Georgia by 1, Arizona by about 4.8%, Nevada by 2.9%, Texas by 8%, Florida by 7%, and New Hampshire and Maine basically flip. So, and Minnesota is very, very close. So it's like, well, if that's the 2016 number, and Donald Trump is already basically tied in the popular vote, what's going to happen with white college voters? Now, they may shift to the right a little bit, but probably not as much as people are thinking. Or maybe they actually do shift to the left. I mean, it's very possible that does happen. But I totally expect Trump to get basically 20% of the African-American vote. That puts him in a good spot in some of these states like Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada. And once you edit that Hispanic vote, which I think is going to be really close, I think it's going to come down to just about 5 to 10 points, that's when you get the map that I have, effectively. That's basically when you get the map that I have, literally. This is literally my map. It's Donald Trump ahead by around 2-ish points, a little bit, almost 3. New Mexico's close, Minnesota's close, Virginia's close, give or take, and New Hampshire and Maine are basically competitive. And you got this Asian vote, which I also think is going to be a lot closer, and there goes New Hampshire. And Minnesota is basically about tied. And when you compare it to my model, I mean, this kind of lines up relatively well with what I have. It basically is spot on. And just a little bit of a push, and New Mexico and Minnesota already go. And Virginia's kind of there. And that's assuming that Kamala Harris improves with white college-educated voters. That's not even guaranteed. Also, the problem here, you see this 347 map that I just created right now, how, some of these states go, Virginia narrowly goes right. You know what's the interesting part about this? Kamala Harris's favorability rating is at about 46, 47. But favorability rating does not indicate what you'll do in the popular vote. It's actually your job approval. And when you adjust for a D+1 electorate in your job, for her job approval and Donald Trump's job approval, he'll basically be leading that model by 3 as well. Not only that, Harris actually also is at around a 41-42% job approval rating. When you adjust for undecideds, her favorability rating is 46-47, and usually candidates tend to perform close to their job approval. Now, do I think she's going to get 41% nationally? No. She probably gets like maybe 45, 46, which is about right where I have here. It's normal for candidates to have a low job approval rating that have slightly higher favorables to underperform their favorable rating by a point or two. But Donald Trump has a 46-47% favorability rating, but his job approval recall, when you ask voters, what do you think of his presidency, he pulls above 50% every single time. And now he's at 51% of the popular vote. So it's very possible that I may even be underestimating him. As crazy as that sounds, I may still be underestimating him in the Electoral College. It's very, very possible. And we're looking at an electorate that's pissed. I mean, you just had a bunch of Virginia voters go out there and vote for the first time like they've never had before. I mean, all of the vote totals basically exceeded what they were on day one of this equivalent early voting. Like, it's pretty insane. And looking at, Twitter, we see apparently, according to the Harris camp, that they're worried about Virginia and New Hampshire flipping red with Pennsylvania. That basically, my model literally has Virginia, New Hampshire's about to flip, and Pennsylvania is super going red. So this kind of lines up with what I have. And there actually was a new poll today out of Virginia that has the race tied, guys. It's a tied race in Virginia, but there's no way Virginia's tied. But the popular vote is Harris +6, Harris +5. And those are the only polls that have been coming out of Virginia. There's been a few polls that have Harris up by 8 or 9, but when you look at the samples, they actually super overestimate Democrats. The samples that are a little bit more accurate to the 2020 vote, they actually have it closer. And now Kamala Harris's campaign is considering going on Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan to basically court young men. And this is her problem. Young men are really, really turned off by Harris. That is the problem. And look at this. Your campaign has talked about meeting with people where they are. Have you been considering internally on going on podcasts to cater to young men? Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, places that Trump and allies have gone on. Without previewing any particular shows or outlets that we may end up going on, I think it's fair to say we are going to take an all of the above approach to her appearances because we think there's all kinds of different audiences that are very open to learning about her. So yeah, that's hilarious. Like, they're literally, like, that's hilarious that they may want to go on Joe Rogan and, other places because they realize there is a big disparity with young men. It's a really big problem for them. We see another report here. Maine, Virginia, New Hampshire, basically, according to their own campaign, are pretty much all in play, and it's very similar to what I have. And so, guys, things are looking not so great for the Harris campaign, and Donald Trump has basically opened up the electoral map that DeSantis would have been able to do, Marco Rubio would have been able to do this, no one would have been able to do this because those college-educated voters basically would have automatically swung left. Yes, maybe, Kamala Harris would have done worse with, no college, but those college-educateds would have swung left instantaneously. Like, it would have been bad. Like, the non-college would have been bad. Maybe, DeSantis would have gotten like 15, 16% of the black vote. Maybe like Hispanics would have been maybe a little bit better. You could have had something where Wisconsin hadn't gone. Maybe Asians would have been a little bit better. You could have had a narrow path for a candidate, but it wouldn't have been good enough. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And make sure to go ahead and go on betonline.com. You can go to the sports section and go to politics, and you can actually bet on the presidency, the different states on where they're going, the margins of how much they go, the House Representative elections, and the Senate elections. I will see you guys in the next video.